Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast for military and veterans. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, and provide value and solutions to help make life more abundant. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode. This is part 5 of 5 of this incredible story. If you have not listened to parts 1 through 4, stop this right here, go back, listen to those chronologically in order so that the story makes sense. This is all one big long story, and this is the last part of it. So if you've listened up until this point, thank you so much for listening and for supporting continually every week. And I hope you enjoy the episode today.
So I ended up taking the MMPI-2, which stands for Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. So I'm gonna say what it's test for. It's a self-report inventory with 567 true or false questions about yourself. The answers help mental health professionals determine whether you have symptoms of a mental illness or personality disorder. Some questions are designed to reveal how you feel about taking the test. So if you get bored, it can tell that you're like faking answering. So, you know, in movies when like serial killers and stuff, they're like, oh, I plead insanity. These are the questions that this is a test that they have you take. And this is where they can tell like whether you're lying or, you know, any kind of thing, like whether you get bored. And they actually have a new one though, but that one is the MMPI-2. So I took that one, and the one thing about that one is when you take these, they can never be taken away. You can't be like, so if I would have flagged for bipolar, which can get you separated from the Navy, they could never be like, oh, we never took that test. It's something that like sticks with you. So when I went to go meet with the psychiatrist, he explained everything to me. He's like, we cannot force you to take this test, but this is your choice. And I'm going to give you, you know, we're only going to talk about what this test entitles. And then the next appointment, we can actually go and give you the test. But I want you to have some time to think about whether you want to take this test or not, because once you take this test, there's no going back. So eventually I took the test, and I scored high for PTSD. I actually scored really high for schizophrenia because my paranoia is really high. I have a personality disorder, which is avoidance, where I feel like a lot of people get multiple personality disorder and personality disorder twisted, because if you have a personality disorder, like that's something that you get when you're a child and it just becomes a part of your life. So for me, mine is avoidance. So growing up, I had to avoid a lot of things, like avoid telling the truth, you know. So like if my ex-stepmom said, you know, like if I did something, I would tell her I didn't do it, and she didn't believe me. And so lying became a part of my life because that was how I survived not getting beat, you know. Avoidance was a huge part of my life. It was a survival tactic with my mom being a druggie and a junkie, like with my stepmom, like avoidance has become a huge part of my life. So like when we moved in together, like me trying to avoid, that's my fight, fly, or like I can't, I will, I get very uncomfortable when I'm in a situation that I can't avoid. Very awkward, very uncomfortable. Talking is one of my things. So like, you know, when I'm in uncomfortable situations, I like word vomit. And so that's a personality disorder that I have. And it's which says a lot because I avoid a lot. I'm a huge procrastinator. And like I thought that, you know, like doing all this like has really like helped me understand a lot of how I am and why I am, because some things like a personality disorder, you can't help. You can't help, because not only does that go with my personality disorder, but also that goes with my PTSD. And so, I ended up continuing with my therapy. I tried some medicine. The one thing I didn't like about that doctor is he put me on, I think it's trazodone, which is a sleeping medicine. And I know this is a bad habit, but I smoke. And my habit is to, because I don't sleep, I was having a lot of problems sleeping. I would take my trazodone, go down, smoke a cigarette, and then go to bed. But when I was doing this, I only tried it. I didn't even try it for that long. I think I took 1 or 2 pills. Like I think I tried it once or twice and it didn't do anything. So he told me to step it up. And then this is what happened. I took it, went down to go smoke, and I started feeling really weird. And then I felt like my body was shutting down, and I had to basically like crawl up my stairs, crawl into bed. And then I felt like I had sleep paralysis. I just couldn't move. I wasn't sleeping. I just couldn't move. And I told Dr. Hudak this, and I told him, I was like, I can't take this. I was like, it scares me. I was like, especially because my mom overdosed, like it scares me. And he's like, oh, I think you should give it another chance. That's what he told me. He didn't like nothing else. He did like, so, but then I ended up, like he didn't even prescribe me a different sleeping medicine. He just skipped the whole topic and then ended up putting me on antidepressants, which didn't make sense because I wanted to feel things. I completely isolated myself from my feelings. The only feelings I felt at the moment were anger and fear and sadness. There was no happiness, no nothing else. I couldn't feel anything. I had no empathy. I'm a huge empath, and I just couldn't feel anything. And so after a couple appointments with my therapist, who was a piece of shit, I like I said, like my caseworker helped me so much, but also I was working with SAIL, which I think I'm going to touch on that. I still worked with SAIL. Even though I wasn't suicidal, I did have suicidal ideations, and a lot of people don't understand what suicidal ideations are. Suicidal ideations are not only about thinking about suicide. Even thinking that the world would be better off without me is a suicide ideation. Thinking that I don't matter is a suicidal ideation. You don't have to be about killing yourself to have a suicidal ideation. That's like a lot of people don't understand, just being like, like I had a lot of them. I just thought that maybe like, if I wasn't here, like things would be better off, and so talking to my cell lady, like she helped me out a lot too, and because mental health is so packed, I could only see my therapist every other week, and so SAIL SAIL program, let me see what it stands for, because it actually stands for something. And I forgot. I'm terrible. SAIL stands for Sailor Assistance and Intercept for Life. And so when my command sent me to SAIL and got me an appointment, that was not right, because you are not supposed to send somebody to SAIL just because they're going to mental health. That is not supposed to be associated together. Just because you're depressed does not mean that you are suicidal, and those two should not correlate. And the Navy should, like, it is per the instruction, they are not supposed to correlate those two together. But if I had a suicide attempt, it is mandatory that the command goes and schedules me an appointment with SAIL. Can they force me to go? No, they cannot. But it's been proven that it works, because so what happens when you go to SAIL is you meet with kind of like a caseworker, therapist person. And thankfully mine is a therapist on the side. And I would talk to her like once a week. And then it would sometimes go once every other week, and then maybe once a month, and so on and so forth. And so basically you are in charge of how this goes, if you want to go stay longer or if you want to stay shorter. And basically they're just there to check up on you and see how you're doing and see how if your ideations are gone or what you're thinking or how you're feeling. And that's what SAIL's there for, which I really appreciate the program. I really like the program, and I think what they're doing is great. And I wish that I would have known about it sooner. And I wish people were more open about it, because I'd never heard of it before they sent me there. I'd never heard of it. And so that's why personally I became a suicide prevention coordinator on my command. But so I was working with SAIL, and then I was working with my caseworker, my therapist, and my fucking psychiatrist for shit. And my caseworker told me to talk to my therapist about different programs that they had and stuff, because my therapist right off the bat wanted to put me in a med board. And I got mad. I was really mad, because I was like, you're not going to try to fix me. You're not going to try to help me. And she's like, well, you have a lot of traumas, blah, 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 blah. I was like, that doesn't matter. I was like, I'm here. Obviously I want to get some help. I want help, you know? And so my caseworker, thankfully she was a huge help, because this was probably September or October. And at the time I was talking to a very narcissistic guy, and it was like fucking terrible. My caseworker told me to ask about Strong Hope. And what Strong Hope is it's the only civilian-owned program that the military will pay for you to go to. And you're there with, well, you're supposed to be there only with veterans and military members, active duty military members. They're not supposed to send civilians, even though every once in a while they do. And so that way you're surrounded by people with the same understanding of what you're going through. And so I went to go ask. I asked my therapist about it, and she, told me the basics and stuff like that. Basically just told me to really just to Google it. And so when I went, a lot of times after I left my therapist, I would go talk to my caseworker. And I went and talked to my caseworker, and she told me, my therapist told me that my caseworker would have to be the person to really put me in for it and figure out the dates and stuff like that. My therapist was lazy. And so I ended up going to Anne, and she sent me an email with all the information and stuff like that, and told me to pick a date. She's like, pick a dates when you want to go. She's like, remember that your first limb due term ends your first limb due term ends at the end of January. So I was like, all right. So this was November when I finally heard about it, because nobody, my therapist was, like I said, she was shitty. So I talked to my caseworker about it, and I did not want to be stuck at a psych ward during the holidays. And so because it was already November, I asked if I would be able to go home for the holidays and then check into work, because we were working every other week. So I could check into work, and then I could go to Strong Hope. Well, Dr. H is a fucking shitbag. And he kept switching my so when you go to mental health, you are supposed to be in charge of your treatment. Well, Dr. H he wasn't like that. He would basically he would try to force you to do things. And he wanted me to take these medicines. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, what do you, I don't know what you want. He's like, and then I told him, I was like, well, I'm going to go to Strong Hope, you know, blah, 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 blah. Maybe that can help me. And he's like, well, when are you going? I was like, oh, I'm going to go after the holidays. He's like, no, you are going to go as soon as possible, or I will sign you into a psych ward, and then we can evaluate you and then figure out what kind of medicine you're going to be put on. I was like, excuse me? You're going to sign me into a psych ward? I was like, what reason do you have to sign me into a psych ward? You are not going to threaten me that you are going to put me into someplace because of what you want. That's not how it goes. And then he backed down. And this is what pissed me the fuck off. And so he ended up being like, all right, you know, he laid off because I picked a date. Like, leave me the fuck alone. I picked a date. I'm going. I'm not going to go and be depressed during the fucking holidays in a psych ward by myself. I'm sorry. And also, it's supposed to be voluntary. Well, quote unquote. I'm finding out very quote unquote that it's supposed to be voluntary. So I, you know, go home for the holidays and everything. And I get back and like my caseworker, she like called me. I remember her calling me when I was almost on the way back from Iowa, and which was that was the scariest drive I've ever drove in my life. Like that year. Yeah. Because I remember I told you like how like the roads were icy and I'd never seen so many accidents. And that was the last time I drove home. It was the most stressful, scary drive I've ever drove. And so I got home. I got all my paperwork for Strong Hope. I put in a complaint about Dr. H and requested to be switched. And they lost it. And yeah. And so I figured, I was like, you know, I'll just deal with it when I come back. So when they give you this list before you go to Strong Hope of what you can bring and what you can't bring, which is ridiculous. One thing that really upset me when I checked in was they did not tell me, and they will not tell you, that they do a strip search. Basically, they make you undress, and then they have people come in, and then they check your body to see, you know, they said that they're checking for marks and stuff, but it really upset me because they have you sign yourself in before they do that. And so you're agreeing to be like signed into a psych facility, because that's what this is. You're agreeing to sign into a psych facility. And then they're like, oh yeah, well now you get to see you naked. So for me, being a sexual assault victim, like I go in full panic and I get pissed off. And then the nurse told me, she's like, well, it's not our fault that you didn't know about this. Your caseworker or your hospital should have told you about this. And I was like, I didn't deal with my hospital at all about this. And so I was mad. And then they cut all my fucking strings off of my fucking, like, my sweats, because they're like, you might hang yourself with this. Like nothing past 3 inches, like it with everything. Yeah. They made me tear off my mirror off of my, my makeup thing. Like they weren't going to let me have my perfume bottle because it has a metal spring in it. Like they were going above and beyond. Glass, because my lotion came in glass. They're like, oh, the guy's like, we'll just let you pass on this one, you know? And the thing that made me so mad about the guy that was going through my bags, he goes through my entire bag, takes out stuff, you know, like I can't wear belts. I mean, I did not know that this was going to be a legit psych ward. I did not know that this is technically, like, because of all the floors that were below it, it is a psych ward. Check that off my bucket list. But so the thing that made me mad about him was we're going through all this stuff. Like he's, you know, I can tell that, like, you know, you could tell when some guy's like being nice to you because you're pretty. And that's what, he was doing. And, but then what made me mad was we get done with checking all my stuff. And I was sitting out there in front of this other guy who, he said that he took like 10 oxycodines and whatever. And then he also like sniffed cocaine, and then he also did all this other shit. And then he also got drunk before then, and he was just saying all this crazy shit. And he was in a suit. It was just weird. It was weird. And he was trying to sign himself into the ward for detox. And they're like, I'm sorry, if you overdose, we're not here for that. We're calling the ambulance to come pick you up. But these people, they were crazy. And so this guy goes in, and they have like the one-sided mirrors, or like the windows. So they have those, so they can see you, but you can't see them. And he comes out and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot to ask, are you wearing a bra right now? Because I got to put that on the list too. And I was just like, yeah. He's like, what about underwear? Are you wearing underwear too? I was like, yeah. But also, I really want to be like, why the fuck are you asking that in front of these other people that are here? Like, when you had me in a room by myself going through my shit, but you wait until we're in front of everyone and then ask me if I'm wearing bra and panties? Really? Like, but there was a lot of stuff that they tell you that this is how it is on the site, that's not how it is, that you don't get your cell phone at all. I was told that you do get your cell phone, but that was not true. It was not what I was expecting. Rehab was way more lax than this place. Rehab. And I went twice. So yeah, this rehab was way, way more lax than this place. And you can't wear tennis shoes with strings. They lock them all up so you don't hang yourself. You can't have your beanie because you might hang yourself with it. Like, you don't have locks on the doors. You don't have a hanging thing on the door. You can't pick the rail, like hold the railing thing, because it has a metal slab hooked to it, so that you can't tie a towel around there and hang yourself. It's just, there was no doors on like where you put your clothes. It was crazy. And it wasn't what I envisioned at all. And it was hard. It was hard going there. Like, my baby sister, I was messaging her and I told her what I was doing, and she's like, she said that if it gets too hard, she's like, don't stay. She's like, because it'll make you worse. She's like, and it was like, I was just like, she's like 15 years old. I was just like, and she was very supportive of it. My brother was supportive. My dad, of course, is super supportive of it. And I go there, and first off, the girls were all fucking mean. Majority of them were so mean. And because I didn't fully understand that me going to rehab were 30, they count those as 30-day programs. And this was technically my third 30-day program. And a lot of the stuff that they taught here, I had already learned in rehab. And I had already like included it in my everyday life. Like, and so I didn't really say much. I would sit at the table and just color with coloring pencils. And that's majority of what I did. I would listen to people talk, and kind of like, I think I've explained it to you, where like, I'm an empath. So a lot of things, like if you tell me a story, I'm not telling you a story about me because I'm trying to one up you. I'm trying to tell you a story about me to see if I'm correlating it the right way. If I'm connecting to you the right way, because I don't want to misunderstand you. And I don't want to think that, think of it differently than what you're thinking of. I want to be in your shoes. So that's why I'm sharing a story that I think is similar to yours, not to invalidate you in any way, shape, or form. And so that's a lot of what I would do in group. But then we would have our one-on-ones, and they tried to do EMDR with me, which let me Google what that means. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So people use it with the light where it goes back and forth, left to right. But they also use paddles, which do vibrate left and right, left and right. And what that is supposed to do is, because your left side of your brain is your rational brain and your right side of your brain is your emotional side of your brain. And what they're trying to do is reconnect, so that way you can see what's going on in your brain. You can visualize it, but you can also feel it. And I actually, it does not work for me. I didn't like it. It didn't work for me. And it was really pissing me off, because that's what they were pushing for, was to do this. And it wasn't working for me. Because I am a very visualized person. I dream a lot. I remember stuff from when I was 3-4 years old, and I can't get it out of my head. And I don't know. And sometimes I wish that I was like everyone, where they just forget stuff. But I can't. And so, it was very frustrating for me. And so the girls in there, they end up becoming some kind of like animosity. And one of the girls in particular, it made me mad, because the whole time she really made it seem as if she was sexually assaulted by her dad. And that's what a lot of girls thought. We all thought that she had been sexually assaulted by her dad. She was an officer. She was like 23 years old, like a baby. And just the way she would talk, she really had that. You know how when you meet somebody and their persona, you're like, yeah, you're an officer. You know, the cockiness and everything. That's what she had. And she was super, went to college for psychology, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, all right, you're in a psych ward with us, lady. Like, calm it down. And she was very judgmental, and her and a couple of the other girls, they were just, they were like that. And if I would say stuff, they would like downplay it a lot. And it was just very frustrating. So I didn't really I think the biggest thing was I didn't mingle with them too when I first got there, but also I'm not going to talk about my shit to you when I don't know you. And so, we go in, and you have different lessons, and I go to do one of my worksheets. And one of the first worksheets that you do is called an ABC worksheet. And so you do the activating event, your belief of that event, and your consequence. So like something happens, I tell myself something and I feel something. And then in the court of martial, like would that belief be true no matter what, because of all like the nevers, and then what can you tell yourself on such occasion in the future? So what can you say instead of making a forever statement? And so I go up there and I do mine. And I think this was my first one. My first one was because they go and they have you write down your beliefs. Well, so you go and tell like a brief story about things about yourself, and they have you one of the ladies goes and writes down your what she thinks that you should write for your beliefs and stuff. And let me see. My first one was, I think it was this one. I don't think it's that one. I think it might be this one. I need to constantly recheck doors. I have to be hyper vigilant. And so when I go over this and I'm telling like what happened and what happened to make me feel like this, a lot of my traumas came out with my mom, with my stepmom, with being stalked, with my sexual assaults, with just everything in general. And all the girls were like jaw dropped. And so then we end up having a powwow because of all the animosity that you can feel within the rooms. And these girls tell me basically that I should have came in and I should have told them what was going on with me, because I look like I have my life together. And that if I'm looking at me and the way I talk, I seem like I'm better than everybody and that I have everything figured out. And they're like, we wish you would have shared your traumas with us when you first got in, instead of going and acting like you had everything figured out. And that pissed me the fuck off, because I'm like, so I like, I was really mad because you want me to come into a fucking psych ward where I don't know anybody and I be like, hey, I'm fucked up because, you know, I got sexually molested as a child, like all this other shit. You want me to come in and just straight up tell you that stuff? Like, I could not comprehend that. And so the main girl who said all this, later, I think it was the next week, we ended up finding out everybody thought she was sexually assaulted as a child. Everyone. Lie. The way she was making things wording things was to seem as if she was sexually assaulted, but she was never sexually assaulted. And her stories changed so much. She said that the majority of the time she was there because there was a suicide and she had to like do something for it. But then she would say it was also because of this other person's, her husband's best friend suicide that she said she had to clean up for. But then she told me in a one-on-one that she was happy her husband's friend committed suicide because he was a bad influence on him. Yeah. She told me that. And that is what boiled me. It made me so mad. And so the next time I had to present anything about mine was my story. And you have my trauma account. And I shared the one about me being gang raped before I joined the Navy. And I did not want her in there. There was a few girls that I was just like, I don't want to read this, because there was girls that were taking people's traumas and making it their own. And I don't like that. And also I was like, I don't want somebody that's going to go and take my trauma and make it seem as if they've had that kind of trauma, because the girl, she was making it seem as if she'd been sexually assaulted. And it doesn't matter if it's by your dad or by anyone. The sexual assault is sexual assault. By your father is just really fucking shitty, like even 1,000 times more shittier. But a sexual assault, nobody should ever be sexually assaulted. And I just didn't want to share it with her because I didn't want her fucking opinion. You've never walked in my shoes. You try to make it seem as if you walked in my shoes, but you've never walked in my shoes. So don't give me advice on something that's never happened to you. And my therapist was telling me to be the bigger person. So of course, I did, and it sucked though. And like, there was so much drama there. Like, it was just, I did not like it. I think that's what pissed me off the most was, like, there was another girl who she would like go back and forth and tell people stories and shit and try to get people to go fight and everything. And then like, we had to have another powwow. And then she says she didn't know what I was talking about. And that I was trying to come after her and all this other shit. And then the day she left me a note, an envelope. And she apologized because she's like, I remember everything. I just don't want to get in trouble. And I was just like, are you fucking, I mean, obviously we're all in a psych ward, so we're all fucking crazy. But like, it just made me so mad. Like, I would have rather you just thought that you were just fucking psycho than that you knew you were doing this the whole fucking time. But like, it was very frustrating. And the fact that too, I think that's where also I learned to get my voice for my, treatment, because my therapist kept pushing EMDR and it was making me mad, because I'd already like, you only get 2 therapy sessions a week with your personal therapist. And so I wrote a letter. I wrote a petty letter about how I was disappointed in this place, and that it was just very petty. It was just a full-on petty letter, and I read it. And my therapist came and pulled me to the side the next day to talk to me, because the therapist that was there that day, I actually messaged her and basically told her the gist of everything. And she's like, well, we'll change we changed the way my therapy was ran, because I, like I said, I'm already visual, but I'm more of a talk therapy person. I need to talk about it. And the more I talk about it, the more things flow. But then also, like, I feel more when I talk about it. And that's what I wanted, was to feel. I wanted to be able to empathize with people. I wanted to be able to, like, take in somebody's emotions, but also let them out, And I feel like that's one thing that a lot of people don't know how to do, is they don't know how to, yeah, you may be an empath, but you can't hold on to those burdens that you're taking from somebody else, and you can't make them your own, because that's what I was doing with my family. That's what I was doing with a lot of things. And I needed to learn how to let them go. How do you help this person with their problems instead of just taking it on as your own? And now you have all these other burdens that aren't yours. So that's what we ended up doing. And it really helped me a lot. And the thing that helped me was, my therapist was also a sex therapist. And that's where, as sad as this is to admit, because I was 30, I didn't know sex wasn't supposed to hurt. And I didn't know a lot of things. And so she actually, she suggested a bunch of books for me to read, which I haven't read. I need to. But but she also suggested me to go start seeing a pelvic floor specialist, which is what I did. I see a pelvic floor specialist. I needed to learn how to be more comfortable with myself. And there was just a lot. And I'm really, really happy that eventually we did get to more of an understanding, but like, I'm thankful that I went to Strong Hope, because in the end, I did go when I needed it, and I still talk to a few people from there. And also, if there's people that I know that are going there, I can warn them about some of the things that they are going to go through, because we had a girl who, she was self-harming herself, and she was having seizures, and it was very hard. It was really, really hard. And it took them almost a week to get her out. And we were stuck with this girl that was hurting herself, and we couldn't do anything about it. And my anxiety got so bad where I was passing out. I don't know why. I could feel that I was getting anxious out of nowhere, and I would pass out. And so I was getting the hang of it, where like, when I was about to leave, like, if I felt that I was about to have like an anxiety attack, I could sit down and start breathing. But I've never had it to where my anxiety was so bad I was passing out. And so it was very scary for me. And so now, like, I have specific pills, like, when I do start feeling anxious. And so, like, I did learn a lot there, and I'm very happy I went. It was very hard though, especially being stuck with a bunch of females, like, we're in a psych ward. Everybody's very crazy, but I did meet some really good people too. And I got a lot of good tools. So when I left there, I fired my therapist, and I fired my psychiatrist. The therapist I actually talked to as soon as I left is now my therapist, which I'm very thankful for her. Except for she puts me on time limits, because because I could talk about a bunch of things. I could talk about a bunch of nothings, and but when I came back, I started to see a pelvic floor specialist, like I said. I also started going to the OBGYN instead of regular medical for any of my female care. Thank God, because like OBGYNs know so much more about stuff than just like it doesn't even matter if it's just a female doctor. If she's not a specialist, because the one I had a female doctor and I had a pap smear before I went, and I get really uncomfortable during situations. And this woman told me, she's like, you should feel like, she's like, you've had these enough. She's like, we're women. So she's like, I don't even know why this is bothering you. She's like, she like blatantly just like invalidated any of my feelings at all. And so, but I also started being more open with medicine, because I used to be very anti-medicine, especially like, my panic attacks and stuff like that. When I get anxiety, like, when I get overwhelmed because I get angry. And since now I have all these feelings coming back, I needed a bit more help of how to take care of them all, if that makes sense. When I came back, I was working. Obviously, I said I became a suicide prevention coordinator. I'm pretty open with me going to Strong Hope, but right away I wanted to go to IOP, which is intensive outpatient, and I went with at Strong Hope, which I didn't start until like June because it fucking took forever to get me in. And so so I was just mainly working, and it was fine because we were working like every other week or whatever. And then we ended up working like either mornings or nights. And but when I started OIP or IOP, at first you go 5 days a week for like a couple weeks, and then you switch to 3 days a week. And at first, the chief that I had was super supportive of the whole thing. He's like, you don't have to come in, blah, 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 all this other shit. He's like, you're on limb due. You need to do your, do this stuff. But I was still coming in, or if I had stuff to do, I would still do it. I still went to CFL school. I got my CFL certification. I did reports. I have products. I did analysis. I was the acting CFL. Because ours were on deployment, but I was also a suicide prevention coordinator because my chief, she was on deployment, but also I was Sailor 360 coordinator. I coached T-ball, which is amazing because at first I was so afraid. Okay, I was afraid that they weren't gonna like me. And because they're little kids, they're like 4 to 6 years old. I'm like, what if they don't like me? But I coached T-ball, and it was absolutely one of my most favorite things I've ever done. I did this DC. I should have known I was gonna like it because I did this DC Special Olympics. Same age group, and I absolutely adored it. I had so much fun. And so I have my T-ball team, and I love them. And like it's different. It was like, how I explain it is, when I got to have team, like when we had training or when we had games and stuff, like it's like filling up my love tank. It rejuvenated me. It made me feel better. Just to be around these kids, to give them confidence, to like we had one girl on our team, and by the end of the season, her mom and dad came and thanked me because she didn't want to play. Like at first she wanted to play, but then she was afraid because she was a girl. But then having a female coach like really helped her get out of her, like she, one of our top batters. And like all it made me feel good too, because all the moms and stuff were asking me if I was going to be here for the next season. And I had a blast. I had so much fun with them. And it really helped me. It's something I really look forward to. I really looked forward to spending my time with my kids and seeing them and then shit talking them and like, but also teaching them sportsmanship, even though I never played sports. I never played any sports growing up. I did track. We didn't have money to play sports growing up, but I had so much fun, and I definitely would do that again in a heartbeat. So I was just finding like different things I could do, different things I could be busy with. But then I also met my ex, who I ended up like realizing after like dating for a few was that he was in a very verbally and mentally abusive relationship, his former relationship. And so I tried to make things different. I really went into the whole relationship with, this is how I want to shape a relationship. This is what I want in a relationship. So this is why I'm going to be like this, because I wanted to have an open communication. I wanted to be able to talk about the things that we did and didn't like. I wanted to be able to talk about the things that we wanted. And I mean, as you can tell, it didn't work out. He still messages me randomly, which is, it's very, nerve-wracking, because I was putting everything in, and I wasn't getting anything back. And he would say that he would do stuff, but then he wouldn't do it. And he didn't understand. Like, I was like, that's lying. And he's like, that's not lying. I was like, yes, it is. If your dog fucking chews up my shit and you said you're going to fucking replace it and you don't, that's a lie. I was like, when you say that you're going to cook me dinner and you don't show up until late, that's a lie. And then I didn't like the fact that he would sexualize me all the time. All the time. He would like, we would barely talk at all. And then we'd go to the gym. And then if there was people there, he would go up and grab my ass. And I'm like, are you only doing this because somebody else is here? Like but some of the things that he would message me when he'd left on deployment were just so vulgar and grotesque. Like, so like when I started seeking out what was going on with me, like pelvic floor specialists and everything, so they made me have another ultrasound, which I was scared. It was with the same guy, and thankfully there was a female there, and it hurt. It hurt really bad. I was crying. It hurt. I don't know if it hurt because like I was just so tense because of what he did the last time, but it hurt really bad. And I was super sore for like the next week, and it hurt. And he didn't do what he did the last time. The last time, like where he was going, he would guide with his finger so he could feel, but he did that with my stomach when the girl wasn't there. And then when he went to do the other, because it has to be internal and external, he does external, of course, at first. And again, guide with his finger. And then he did the internal. And thankfully she was there. And this time he didn't guide with his finger. And I really feel like he does that because he's trying to cop and feel while he's doing things. And the thing that made me mad was there is an OBGYN that would come up from, now she's in Bremerton and she works for the Navy. And because we don't have OBGYN anymore because the Navy cut 70% of female health. Because guess what? Girls don't need female health. Fuck them. You know? So we have a midwife. They replaced our OBGYN with a midwife. And the midwife had to go TAD someplace else. And so they had to bring the old OBGYN from Bremerton up here. And it was very discouraging because I forgot who I told. I think I can't remember who I told this to. Oh, my pelvic floor specialist. I told her about the incident and how it made me uncomfortable. And she said I really needed to tell my OBGYN or somebody. And so I told my OBGYN, and she proceeded to tell me that she's known him for a very long time, and she highly doubts he would do something like that. Yeah. She's like, that doesn't sound like him. He's been here for a while, and he would never do something like that.
So no action got taken. Did you end up taking it up any higher than that?
No, because it's just like, if my own OBGYN isn't going to, I don't know. It sucks because I feel very discouraged from the fact that what she said, because if he has been there for a very long time, who's going to believe me? Yeah. And so that's what she told me. And well, eventually, like, I got a lot of blood work done because too, after I left Strong Hope, food wasn't sitting with me right. And I was just having I was like, do I have IBS or like I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I ended up getting like a lot of blood work done. Like there was just so much. They didn't want to do any of the blood work done. I got blood work done from my family medicine, and they're like, yeah, everything looks fine, blah, 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 blah. It said like, so I was going through my, still going to IOP, but I ended up getting out of IOP because I felt bad because I was always gone. And then they tried putting me on shift work. And according to my LIMDU orders, I can only be on in the morning or during the day because I have to go to my appointments. And because the sole purpose of LIMDU is to go to your appointments. And then I think it was in July that they started to actually start my process of actually going in for a med board. And I started to schedule all my appointments. I had like 10 appointments. And then along with that, like one of the appointments that's supposed to be like your head to toe, that appointment took like 5 hours. And so then I started also seeing a TMJ specialist for my jaw. And then to what else? There's something else. I stopped going to IOP and started just doing every other week because I was having so many appointments. Because too, I was coloring with color pencils, and all of a sudden my hand was my thumb went numb, and I couldn't feel it for like a week, and then my fingers went numb, and then I couldn't feel those, and my hand was like numb for like a month. And then when I went to a regular doc, they just gave me a wrist wrap, and they're like, yeah, just wear this will be good. So I requested to see a hand therapist and started seeing a hand therapist as well. And then my chief started getting very demanding because I forgot what I was doing, but we had a female call me one of the first classes, and she was asking me about something. And I was like, well, I've already talked to chief about this. I was like, I don't understand why you're asking me. She's like, well, right now I'm the stand-in LPO. And I was like, all right, well, she wanted me to start bringing doctor's notes. And I was like, all right, well, I was like, is this coming from you or is this coming from chief? She's like, or the chain of chief. And she's like, it's coming from your chain of command. I was like, no, is this coming from you or is it coming from from chief? And she's like, I am your chain of command right now. And I'm your LPO. Yeah. Huge cunt. And so because they wanted me to be at work more, but we didn't have any mission, no mission. So basically they just want me to fucking come to work, twirl my fucking thumbs and just sit there. And like, so I go in and chief. So I talked to my LPO, because my other LPO, she was back, thankfully. And I talked to them, or I talked to her, and she's like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And it's fine. But then all of a sudden, I'm about to leave to go home one day. And chief stops me in front of everybody. He's like, so I heard that you're bad mouthing or back talking my first class. I was like, well, she was asking me something, and I asked her, I was like, if it was you or if it was her that wanted it. And he's like, I was the one that told her to ask you for that information. I was like, well, I've never heard of somebody having to bring doctor's notes. He's like, well, I have. I was like, well, I was told that I only have to give you the date and the time. He's like, well, I've seen people give it, and you're going to start giving to me. You're going to start giving me doctor's notes. I was like, all right, well, I'll go talk to CMC about that. He's like, go ahead. And so I did. And then he got in trouble. And so then what ended up happening was what is it called? The IG inspector ended up coming down from DC, and I talked to him about it, and I told him everything that I've gone through. And he ends up telling me that he's like, per the LIMDU, he's like, you were supposed to have a say in where you went. I was like, well, I wasn't given any, no say at all. He's like, they are supposed to give you the say of where you want to go. And if there is a place that you could go for LIMDU, like, you know, the White House or whatever, you are afforded the opportunity to choose to go to there. I was like, well, I never had a say in anything. I was like, but I just want to let you know what's going on here, because I don't think it's appropriate. I was like, and I've been in for a while, and so I'm kind of hard-headed, and I know how to stand up for myself. But if you have somebody else that's going through the same situation, how do you know that they're not going to get very depressed and end up trying to do something? I was like, this should not happen to anybody. I was like, if you are on LIMDU, people are in charge of you, they should understand what the instruction is about LIMDU. Because we actually had a guy who, he's a very good friend of mine, and he was on LIMDU here. And I ended up finding out when I came back from debt that he actually tried to kill himself. He wrecked his truck, but then lied to everybody and said it was something else. And I was really upset because he's a great guy, but the command, they were just doing him really, really dirty, because he ended up finding out he had PTSD. And so, but there was other things that ended up happening. Like the guys in my division were, they were connecting movie lines to people within the division. And one of the guys suggested for me, The Bird Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I didn't hear it. I actually got pulled to the side on the following Monday by one of the girls, who she comes to me and talks to me about, she's had issues, with stuff, with, mental health stuff. And she always comes to me and vents to me. And she told me that it really fucking bothered her, especially because we're trying to get rid of the stigma about mental health. Yet these guys are saying that. And I guess a lot of people didn't put two and two together of why that was inappropriate. And for you that don't know, The Bird Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is about a guy who was put in an insane asylum. And so basically they're trying to make fun of me because I was, locked away. And so I ended up talking to my chief about it. My chief did nothing because he's a fucking shitbag. And oddly enough, my suicide prevention coordinator, when she got wind of it, one of the guys was actually her husband, and she made him come and apologize to me. And I mean, he's he didn't have the full comprehension of what was going on, because he didn't know, because I didn't really know him, but the other guys in the situation did. And but the fact that she put her foot down, she's like, you're gonna she made her husband apologize to me. I really did appreciate that. And I feel like that's something that's needed more in the Navy, is for people to actually stand up for what's right, and instead of just going along with what something is not right, And so there's been a lot of backlash and stuff that I've had. So after I talked to the IG, he actually wrote me an email, and he talked to me because he's like, do you mind if I speak to Master Chief about this? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Because I'd already talked to my Master Chief about it. And I already told him the situation. But and he talked to my chief, but nothing else came of it. So he messaged me and told me that he talked to my Master Chief about it, and that they were, going to get things figured out. And so the next day, Master Chief actually pulled me in his office, and thankfully, he shared a story with me, and it's not my story to tell, but he humanized himself and was telling me the reasons why, mental health is very big for him. And I really appreciated that, because he is also my limited coordinator. And he asked me where I wanted to go. He's like, we can put you in the White House if you want to. We could put you Wing 10 if you want to. He's like, but I personally would prefer you to stay here at the command, so that way you would still be able to work with the other sailors. He's like, I feel like you're a vital part of of our command, and I feel like it would be good for them and for you to stay here. He's like, we can put you in admin. We can put you wherever you want. And so I chose to go to admin. And admin's been fine. It's been all right. It's been good, but things, I got my package sent up November 19th, and I'm still waiting to hear back. But one thing I can say is I wish that I was more persistent with my mental health back then, because I now have taken the MMPI 3, because MMPI 2 is no longer. They made another version. I've been diagnosed with OCD and ADHD, which explains a lot. But also from doing blood tests, from going to the OBGYN, and being persistent with that, I have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, which is really I was kind of really sad about it, but now the more and more I take my medicine, and the more and more it helps, the more and more I wish that I would have known sooner. And I am happy, because it was so frustrating to keep on working on my body, and I had to go to the gym. If I did not go to the gym, I would gain weight really quickly. But now that I got my thyroid in order, I'm slimming down, and and people, it made me so mad, because I would go to the doctor and I'm like, I fluctuate 10 to 15 pounds every other week. This is not normal. They're like, oh, it must be your body type, blah, 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 blah. Now I have a fucking thyroid issue, and now I have to take medicine for the rest of my life. And it makes me so mad that nobody wants to believe you. And that's why, when I do my trainings and stuff, I'm like, find someone, talk to anyone until you find somebody that helps you. Because I have that, but also with my whole period and everything being out of balance, they end up testing me, and my prolactin level is doubled what it's supposed to. And obviously right now you have a baby, so you have the amount of prolactin that I have, because women, they make double the prolactin levels when they're pregnant or when they're breastfeeding, because it helps with the breast milk. For me, it can actually make me infertile, and also give me period problems and stuff like that. And so, which kind of really upsets me, and it kind of really scares me, because I did have an MRI done on my pituitary gland, and I don't have a tumor, which is good. But what if I'm infertile? That's the biggest fear for me, is if I'm infertile, and I've been going to the doctor about this for years, and nothing's happened. And so now I have to go see an endocrinologist and figure it out. And it's very nerve-wracking, and it's very scary. And I wish when, when I went to rehab the first time, they would have pushed me into mental health and tried to have me talk about the issues, that the reasons I was drinking, instead of just telling me not to drink. Because then also give me some insight in that, and the fact that like all this affects, I'm a woman. I'm not sure about guys, but I know that any kind of like trauma can affect your reproductive system, your internal organs, and all this other stuff. And it's really, really just very aggravating because, even with like the whole eating thing, me thinking I had IBS, when I ended up having to get a colonoscopy, fucking horrible, and an endoscopy, which the endoscopies hurt more than anything because they like my throat, like I felt like they jammed something. Well, obviously they did, but they ended up finding out that I had H. pylori. And so I had to take medicine for that. And it's just like, it wasn't all in my head. That's what I'm getting to, is there was a reason for everything. I know my body better than anybody else. And everything that I've had an issue with, I have found that there is a reason. There's a problem. And it makes me so mad that like you just get pushed to the side so much in the Navy, and they just don't care. It seems like they do not care until you actually like go and make a scene. They do not care. They don't. Because I highly doubt if I ever went to go speak to the IG, would I ever have been moved to admin? I highly doubt that, like, there's a lot of things like, with my mental health, with my physical health, with my woman's reproductive system, like none of it would have been taken care of if I wouldn't have kept going back to other people. None of it. Yeah. But, I think, I don't know if there's anything else. But like, I mean, I guess like for me, like we were talking about earlier, which I mean, I guess I can say on here, I am a suicide prevention coordinator now. And one thing that like, thankfully, my chiefs have let me take the reins on a lot of things with like with talking and doing in-doc, because I'm very open about what I've been through. I feel like the Navy needs to humanize ourselves, because we are people before we are sailors. We're not machines. We have feelings. There's a reason why like my job will always be necessary, because a robot will never be able to replace me. And with that, then they need to treat me the way that, the way that's necessary. And so when I do my in-doc, I make sure to tell people, like, get to know your sailors, get to know one another. Even if you don't want to be their friends, you don't have to be their friends to go and ask if they're okay. You do not have to be somebody's friends to be like, hey, how are you doing today? And I can tell you personally that so many people, when I left the ship, a lot of people end up messaging me and thanking me, because if I saw somebody sitting alone, I would go say something and I would see how they're doing. I even had people from my last command message me when I became opened up more about my mental health on my social media, that would message me and that would seek help, or that seek like any kind of like anything, guidance. And not saying I know everything, because I'm definitely not a doctor, but I've had a lot of trauma, and so when it comes to certain things, like, I've been through DAPA, I've been through SAPR, I've been through SARP, I've been through, suicide prevention. I mean, name it, Stimio, any program, any and all programs, I've been through all of it. And I feel like sailors need to know that you do not have to be a perfect person. You do not have to be ashamed of what you've gone through to build your way up. None of that matters. In the end, when you build your way up to success, that's all that should matter, because all those other things are learning experiences that help you get to where you're at. You're not defined by any of your past and anything that's happened. I mean, my first attempt to do suicide was when I was 8, Like, if I would have let myself go and I would have just been so ashamed of that one situation, I wouldn't have been here. But also, if I would have just laid down, I wouldn't be here. Like, I was told growing up was I was going to be white trash. I was going to be pregnant when I was a teenager. I was going to drop out of high school. I was going to be a gangbanger. I was going to be a whore. No guy would ever love me for my body. There were so many things that I grew up that I didn't let continue being a stigma of me, of who I am. And I reached out, and I'm getting the help, and I'm happy that I am so happy I'm getting the help, but I'm also happy that I can be open with it to let other people know that they're not the only ones. You're not alone. Nobody's alone. You know, I'm not saying that your problem is bigger than my problem and my problem is bigger than your problem, because everybody's end of the world is different. Every single person has a different end of the world, just like rock bottom is completely different for every single person. You're not like, if you've been through AA, you know, you should know, because I mean, not everybody that's gone through AA is an alcoholic either, but everybody has a different rock bottom. And I feel like your rock bottom isn't only with drinking. It's with your mental health. It's with your financials. It's with anything. There's a different rock bottom in every situation.
Man, I really just want to end it with that, because that's like, that was phenomenal, everything that you said. But there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. The first one is that you said to check in on people, and I talk about this a lot. But I think so many people in the military will just do your standard, like, how are you today? And they'll do it to like a group of people, but they're not sincere behind it. Because there's a difference between just asking someone, how are you doing today? And sincerely, like, asking because you care how they're doing and you want to listen to them if they have something to say. And I talked to chiefs about this when I was in, and I still push to this day, so that people understand, like, when you ask someone, how are you? You can't just ask someone, how are you? And then not be ready for the answer that you're going to get back. And at the same time, also not asking it as like a blanket statement to a group of people, because you have 10 different people in a room. You're not going to get the real authentic answer to that question when you're asking in a group setting. So I think that's really important to point out. But yeah, if that's all you had to say, then I massively appreciate you taking literally hours out of your time to share your story. You have so much to your story, and I think that there's so many different people that can relate to everything you went through, or maybe they didn't realize they could relate until they listened in, because that happens a lot too. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. This has been like months in the making. So
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you didn't have to apologize. I really appreciate you doing this, because we literally had taken hours doing this, and you didn't have to do that. And but I know you're doing it to share your story, and so that other people, you can help them too. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I feel like what you're doing is very really, really good. And I feel like if everybody actually starts opening up about what we've been through and our experiences and stuff, like, you know, people aren't going to feel so alone, and people are going to have people to talk to you. And granted, yes, there's some people like me, like my dad says, like, I'm a stubborn person and I have to learn lessons for myself, no matter how many people tell me. But like, at least though, I know that I have somebody to come and talk to when I need a solution, because they've been through that. And I feel like that's why back then I was told that when I joined, I was told you cannot be a chief until you've been amassed. And that's the reason why, because how are you going to give somebody else advice when you've never been there? And that's something that, honestly, I don't even know a chief that has more NJPs than me that's been. And so, not that I'm bragging, because definitely not a bragging, right? But, you know, like, I do not know one person that I can really talk to for advice, because everybody, like, either they don't say anything or they just never been there. And so for me, I don't want to be that person. I want people to be able to not feel alone, to feel like they have somebody that they can go and confide in, somebody to talk to, somebody for advice. You know, like, I wouldn't ask you how it is to have a baby, because I've never had a baby. Like, I've never had anything like that. And I feel like that's something that it's not, you know, that. And also, I think that's one of my things. And then also being able to admit when you're wrong. You know, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. You know, it's not everybody's going to know everything. And I feel like adults, when I was growing up, where they're like, I know everything because I'm an adult, I know more than you. No, absolutely not. If you're not learning something new from somebody every day, then what are you doing with your life? What are you seriously doing?
I agree. I would 100% agree. I think that's something that could be utilized a lot more in the Navy, especially with the different age ranges and backgrounds. And, that 18-year-old that just came in probably does know a different set of skills compared to the 40-year-old that's been in the Navy for years. You never know. So that's a really good point to bring up.
Well, I feel like, with everybody talking about how they want to break away from a stigma. All right, well, if you want to break away from the stigma, then everybody needs to start communicating. Everybody needs to start talking. Everybody needs to stop saying, oh, well, this way works, so this is the way we're going to do it. Like, or my life sucks, so now your life's got to suck because you're in the same shoes. No, you want to break away from the stigma, start fresh, start new, start being the person that you want to be, start being the leader that you needed when you were that junior sailor. That's, for me, at least, that's who I want to be, because as a junior sailor, well, first off, I was fucking stubborn as fuck. But I needed somebody to be like, you're wrong. You're wrong. Like, hey, you need to go do this. You need to talk to somebody. Kind of like my OIC. You need to talk to somebody. You need to be open. Like, I needed that. So that's the person I want to be. I want my family to be like that. And I want my sailors to be like that. I want people that I work with to be able to talk to me. And I feel like a lot of what I've learned through all my therapies and through like my rehabs and stuff, I really incorporate that into my family. And I can 110% say that my dad and my relationship has grown immensely. Same thing with my dad and my baby sisters. They have a relationship I wish I had when I was younger with my dad, but I am so happy that she gets the chance to see my dad in that view where he is her best friend. I'm not jealous. I am so happy that he can grow into the person that he's meant to be. And I feel like that's one thing that we need to stop doing too, is being jealous when we go and help other people grow. When we help people grow, like, you should be happy that they're happy. You should get that satisfaction, like kind of like when we were talking about therapy and stuff like that. Like when you were saying that, things that worked out for you, I was happy for you. Same thing with when obviously you took my monster of a dog while I went to Stronghold, but we should support each other. We should build each other up, not tear each other down. And I feel like a lot of those changes will really help with the stigmas that we have that don't go to mental health, don't go to, see all these other people. Like, it makes you look weak. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It makes you stronger because you can admit that you need help. Because humans are not meant to be isolated creatures. We're not meant to be alone. We're meant to communicate. We're supposed to talk to people. We're supposed to help people. That's what we do, or else we wouldn't have the empathy. We wouldn't have a mouth. We wouldn't be able to speak, So I feel like breaking the stigma is a big thing that we need to do. And it has to be a group effort. It has to be.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. Each week, I'll be bringing you value in the mental health space and its direct impact on service members and veterans. If you feel you personally got value today from this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star rating and review and share this to your audience. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.